Hello, I'm going to be talking about my school law case study. Let me pull this up here. School law case study presentation. I did my study on the Bethel School District number 403 versus Frazier. This is for class education 750 Foundations of Teaching Profession by myself, Jordan Bork. Table of contents. This presentation will include the case, ethical problem, dispute, concepts, analyst, impact on today, and resources. So the case is the Bethel School District versus Frazier. It happened on April 26, 1983 in Washington. The case was Bethel School District versus Frazier. Matthew Frazier, a high school student, was suspended during a speech at a high school assembly. The speech was given in front of at least 600 students. The speech included many inappropriate sexual innuendos. The speech was given on April 26, 1983 at the Bethel School District in Washington. The final decision of the case was not made until July 7, 1986. Ethical problem. So the punishment was a 3-day suspension, though Matthew came back after 2 days. Matthew was also not allowed to speak at his high school graduation. So the dispute of the case was whether or not the Bethel School District's punishment to suspend Frazier was violating his First Amendment right to speech, giving him the freedom of speech to say whatever he wanted at the assembly or not. So the concepts. The case contained filing by Matthew's parents with help from the American Civil Liberties Union. Matthew's parents and the attorney Jeff Harley claimed that the school violated Matthew's First Amendment right to freedom of speech. The case was ruled in the favor of Frazier by Judge Jack Tanner of the United States District Court. With that, the school decided to appeal the case again, taking it to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who also ruled in the favor of Frazier. The final case was then taken up by the United States Supreme Court. The school district decided they knew they were right and wanted to go against it. So they took it back and they took it here to the United States Supreme Court. So the analyst, on July 7th, 1986, the final outcome was based on a vote 7-2 by the Court of Appeals through the United States Supreme Court to reinstate Frazier's suspension at the Bethel School District, that they did not violate his First Amendment. Due to the policies that were set in place by the Bethel School District, it was the correct action to suspend Frazier for the vulgar and inappropriate language that was used during his speech. So today, the impact on today's education, there are more and more cases like this happening all around the United States. Schools are at high risk for things like this happening, whether or not it's going against their First Amendment or is it freedom of speech. So depending what policies are set in place within the school. The Bethel School District was also used in comparing a lot of cases. One, for example, was a case that was given off ground about a student making a fake profile. So with that, the case was used to comparison against freedom of speech or not, and whether or not the student could be punished for what was being said. The case used it and compared the school's punishment to set forth that any student who uses their speech containing any school or about the school district, the teacher, that they would be going against school policy, that it would not be violating their freedom of speech, but rather violating a policy, which then could lead to a punishment depending what the school had in place. Also, with the schools right now, impact their schools would ensure that the schools need to be putting forth the correct policies so they can protect themselves against students like Matthew Frazier because of the freedom of speech, though using inappropriate language. So the more in depth that the policy is set in place, the more likely that the school would be protected by those rights. I also personally believe this case is beneficial for the impact of schools education today. I believe that it's because we're protecting action against the student for filing against the schools with the correct policies being set forth. Freedom of speech is definitely an amazing thing and a First Amendment, but it needs to be used in the right way, that it's not harmful to others. The one reason that this could be hindering is for the fact that maybe some students or just teachers, anyone in general, wouldn't feel as comfortable speaking because they don't want to go against what's wrong or right and they don't want to get in trouble. But overall, I really found this case interesting and helpful for understanding the policies that districts need to set in place so that the freedom of speech is okay and that you are comfortable with what you're doing and not going to get in trouble for it. So knowing that you can't use that type of language, but being appropriate. These are also my resources I used, 3 different website articles.